$244,246, or by almost $25 million since 2010. Where is that to come from? Madam Speaker, you have been down to the port recently. Have you seen, Madam Speaker, the goods piled high up to the ceiling? Have you ever been told of the delays in processing warrants, the bottlenecks, and the additional cost to businesses as a result of the wrong computer program down there? To anticipate more revenues from customs and excise in the coming year than was collected in 2010 is to engage in fictional planning, Madam Speaker. 2012 revenues will be even less than 2010 because no additional tax measures will yield this government any more revenues. That's the point I want to make. The UPP has long reached the point of diminishing returns. And as you increase taxes by legislation, Mr. Minister, through you, Madam Speaker, you will collect less revenues, not more. That is a basic tenet of economics. This is a law of economics, not one that can be broken by this regime. Unable to grow the economy as you chase away new investments, the Category 5 hurricane, which characterized our circumstances in 2009, continues to blow, and to blow unrelentingly, Madam Speaker. You know what? Gifts are also to be taxed, the minister has indicated. It isn't exactly the case that this category is relied upon to avoid tax. A policymaker somewhere is convinced that the tax yield can be increased by going after gifts, no matter how insignificantly. The poisoning of the business atmosphere, it will not be conducive to the business sector to have a harmonious relationship with the government. It will not be to the benefit of Antigua and Barbuda. Madam Speaker, I note that the Antigua and Barbuda Investment Agency, ABIA, created to seek out and attract investments to Antigua and Barbuda, is reporting failure. Please tell this Honorable House why, as reported in paragraph 2 and page 3, on page 225 of the budget summary, that, and I quote, with your permission, much of the overall efforts of the ABIA were confined to technical advice and troubleshooting services to ongoing businesses, since the ABIA was unable to fully avail itself of opportunities for investment promotion. That's not me saying that. They quote that. Because of the lack of funding by the government, Madam Speaker, the Antigua and Barbuda Investment Authority has an increase of $2.5 million in capital expenditure. See page 228, Madam Speaker, of the budget summary in its budget. That sum seems to be going to refurbish old buildings or factory shells, I do not know. There was no allocation for this item in 2011, Madam Speaker, and only $29,990 allocated for this item in 2010. Can the minister explain to us, when he wraps up, the objective of this line item? $2,500,000, sir, in capital expenditure, page 228. 4 items under this head in recurrent expenditure on page 227, Madam Speaker, will attract $4.5 million more than in 2011. I would appreciate if the Honorable Minister would explain to this House what operating expense has caused the total to increase by more than $4.5 million over 2011. Madam Speaker, even the government's own Consul General, appointed by the UPP regime in New York, has reported that he has brought scores of investors to Antigua and that they have all left empty-handed. Can that be true? Can it be true? Has the utility of this new department been assessed by anyone? It seems to me that by its own admission, it has achieved very little. So, Madam Speaker, this government formed an investment authority spending nearly 10 million EC dollars a year in its early years. Madam Speaker, this body was supposed to improve, facilitate, and attract meaningful and tangible investments to this country. Not paper investments, real tangible investments on the ground, in mortar and brick. Madam Speaker, we have no investment, but we have millions spending by this body. The Ministry of Planning sits idle. The Ministry of Trade sits idle. The Ministry of Agriculture sits idle. The Prime Minister's ministry sits idle. Madam Speaker, all of the UPP ambassadors overseas sit idle. They no longer process investments to this country. In the 1980s, in the 1990s, when Lester Bird was Minister of Economic Development and Tourism and Energy, and then Ministry of Planning, he had a special unit within that Ministry of Economic Development where they would actively go out and promote investment. We didn't set up this whole level of bureaucracy that cost the government nearly $10 million a year. The Antigua and Barbuda Investment Authority, and they have not attracted any meaningful, tangible investments to the country. By their own admission, they have failed. Excuse me, please. This new investment authority at great expense is now in charge. As I've said, they've replaced the Ministry of Planning, the Ministry of Trade, the Prime Minister's ministry, the Ministry of Economic Development and Planning. This body, in its own business plan presented to this own parliament, seeks to judge itself. To judge itself by proposals and claims that it has processed. They're not judging themselves by tangible results, Madam Speaker, they judge themselves by paper applications that they process, not how many actual investments are on the ground and implemented. They judge themselves by paper projections of how many millions, how many money people claim that they would like to invest, and not what is actually invested in the country. Madam Speaker, it is farcical. We live in the land of Dolly House, in the land of make-believe. Antigua is now Fantasy Island, Paradise Island. Please turn, Madam Speaker, with me to their business plan. Look at the salaries, Madam Speaker, and the expenses of lowly civil servants in the Ministry of Economic Development did years ago a far better job in the 80s and in the 90s and even up to 2004 than these people are doing. And the point is, those civil servants worked hard and they were paid a quarter what these non-productive fat cats are making, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, read on. Read on the report and you'll see that over $6 million spent on medical transcript program, and the company lasted 2 months. $6 million of hard-earned taxpayers' money in 2 months. Gone aguasa. Gone aguasa. 2 months. But the fat cats are still working. And you know what, Madam Speaker? They blame it on, guess what? Madam Speaker, the world economic conditions. So stop the world and let's get off. As Jim Reeves said, make the world go away. Madam Speaker, this government spends over $100 million on fat cats who produce very little but cost the taxpayers a lot. Ask the Antiguan Consul General in New York, who just wrote an article and published on Carib Arena. It is their Consul General who, failing to deliver a single project, he's now blaming civil servants and civil servant organizations. He's not blaming his ministers, no ministers of government. He's not blaming himself. The same civil servants that built this country for 30 years under the Antigua Labour Party government, and who helped this government to collect record taxes so that they can go on their wild spending spree. Are those civil servants that the Council General is attacking? Those civil servants who helped to build this economy and collected record taxes in this country and went out and assisted the minister to attract tangible foreign investment into this country, not paper projections like what the Antigua and Barbuda Investment Authority is doing now. But Madam Speaker, fat cats are in charge. They're rich, living high on the hog, enjoying multiple jobs, proclaiming they're deserving, and it is their time now. They're patriotic, and they're dancing. With who bring them a dance? Madam Speaker, that is a scandal. It is a scandal that we have that Antigua and Barbuda Investment Authority, and they cannot do what one single ministry did in the 70s and 80s and 90s. The Ministry of Economic Development built the Royal Antigua Hotel, the Heritage Quay, the cruise ship piers. Madam Speaker, brought in every single investment into this country with just a few cadre of intelligent technicians up there. Not a whole level of bureaucracy costing $10 million. Then, Madam Speaker, you look at the car park bill, as the minister said, is being finalized with Trinidad and Tobago Central Bank. But I see no provisions for it anywhere in these estimates or business plan. But I want to make the point, if this is the type of investment which the Antigua and Barbuda Investment Authority is quoting, is the company that's charging 2.9%, there's a company, Madam Speaker, if you look in the Daily Observer every day, 2.9% monthly interest, or more than 35% in annual interest rates on sums borrowed from the company, then we are in dire trouble. Not even your credit card interest from any bank anywhere in the world. The most they charge you is 22 or 23% annualized interest, maybe 24. But we have a company in Antigua. It's not only here, it's in St. Kitts and Dominica also. But they have to be regularized, Mr. Minister. They can't be charging poor people 2.9% monthly because they give you a cash advance without any collateral. But they do take their employees' income and let the employer sign that every month that their income will be attached to pay back the loan. I'm speaking about the firm Fast Cash, Madam Speaker. What they're doing to these poor people in this country is wrong. I have spoken to them, and when they made the presentation in St. Kitts, they don't charge 2.9% there. But they're charging 2.9% in Dominica, here and in other islands. It's ridiculous. I know the people, they're from New York. We are addressing it in St. Kitts. Madam Speaker, those kind of usurious rates cannot be allowed in our country. But guess who got the better deal? The firm did. We didn't. We don't need companies like Fast Cash here to exploit our poor working class people and charge them rates of 2.9% per month. That kind of advance on money is harmful and will drive people to go up to the hospital and give them migraine and high blood pressure and die with stroke. Madam Speaker, I now come to the business plan of the Transport Board. I would like you to turn your attention to that business plan, Madam Speaker. You must have heard about the EC $45 million new head office. Its budgeted cost, I understand, was $15 million originally, Mr. Member, for All Saints East and West, East, and St. Luke. I understand the original budgeted cost was only $15 million. They just got a second loan from ACB though. That is true. And they have a cost overrun of nearly $30 million. Over $30 million. Well, when you wind up, Mr. Minister of Public Works, I would appreciate you telling this honorable House, Minister of Health, but you were the Minister of Public Works when this was being built. So you can shed some light. So there are no cost overruns? So there are no cost overruns? That is not my understanding, sir. My understanding is that there's nearly $15 million in cost overrun. and you had to go back to ACT to get additional funds.